Greta Customs retro chair with modern flair. This is the second live of the day. I wanted to bring you guys along. We got the tooling gel coat down earlier today, so I'll link a suggested video to that in the description. But I'm going to do a live layup on our first layer of fiberglass. So this is going to be a fun one. Hopefully you fiberglass guys can pick up a couple tricks. If you guys need any products and supplies, hit up Express Composites out of Minneapolis. I can see it's not in the field of view right now, so I apologize about that. Show you what we're using for resin systems real quick before we get going. The resin system that I'm going to be using today is Orca 555 vinyl ester resin. This would be considered a tooling resin, so it's going to be a little bit thicker than some of our infusion or general purpose resins. I've got a couple cups already with resin inside of them. It shouldn't take too much, but I'm going to blast this out. And I'm going to kind of try to talk about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it while I'm laminating. So without any further ado, first step is going to mix some hardener, some catalyst. For the catalyst system today, I am using 925H. This is what I would consider a snap cure resin or a snap cure catalyst. Sorry about that. And it is going to stay open longer than a standard MEKP9. So I'm going to have more work time doing this. Very, very, very important. So I'm going to start by doing one layer of 3/4 ounce chopped strand mat. I'll show you guys that here in a second. And the whole goal is to try to get as perfect wet out as we can possibly get on our first layer. It is definitely the most important layer of all of the mold because any pinholes that happen are going to transfer down to the surface or potentially cause an issue with the mold surface as you're doing your infusions and your future layups. So keep that in mind. Your first layer is your most important layer. So I've mixed up a full quart of resin. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pour off some of that resin into a second cup. There we go. Just plugged in the phone charger there. So I'm going to pour in, let's say, 1/3 of this into another cup. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm taking some milled fiberglass powder and I'm going to add fiberglass powder to this resin. I'm going to thicken it up just a little bit. A couple hand scoops is all we really need. And this is going to be my brush on coat. So I'm going to use this to brush on to the mold surface. That way when I set my 3/4 ounce chop strand mat down, it's going to be a little bit more forgiving when it comes to some of the surface imperfections from our tooling gel coat. So it's got a pretty good amount of orange peel in it right now, but you can see it's getting a little bit thicker than that resin by itself. And that's what we want. We want a little bit thicker for our first coat. I call it a slush coat. I don't know what the correct industry term on this is, but I call this a slush coat. There we go. Now we're talking. Whoops. I guess I've got some clear gel coat that's coming off the cup. No big deal. No big deal. There we go. So get our fancy dancy paintbrush out. And I'm literally just going to brush the surface. I'm going to do the whole thing in one shot. We're not going to go left to right, up and down. We're just going to do it all. Going to do it all in one shot. So one of the benefits of using this snap cure resin system is I do have a little bit of extra open time compared to a standard lamination resin. So I'm able to do a larger footprint of wet outs all at the same time. The slush coat is pretty darn important. Like I said, to fill in just kind of some of the orange peel that you get from your tooling spray up. You don't need to hit it 100%, but you know, just a quick once over with resin is all you really need. Kind of see that milky look to it. That would be the fiberglass powder. And I'm cooking here. We want to go as fast as we can to get this down. We want as much time with our fiberglass mat. I'm going to take that little chunker out of there. Getting down to the bottom of that cup. So mixed up just about the perfect amount. Almost like I've done this a time or two, huh? A little bit of debris in there, no big deal. There we go. All right, so we've got our slush coat down. Or at least I'm calling it a slush coat. All right, now here's where I get a little bit tricky compared to some of the other guys, right? Blood red mango. Why is there no one here? I don't know, my friend. I don't know. Good question. Good question. I don't have that many subscribers, and YouTube sometimes doesn't hook me up. So I am going to lay this chopped strand mat down in one large sheet, which might be a little bit weird because a lot of people don't do it like this. I'll show you why I do in just a second here. Was that the way I was going to lay this up? Maybe I was going to do it like this. There we go. I think that's the direction I cut the fabric up. Yep, there we go. All right. So, I'm just a little bit short on my fabric layout here. Oh well, no big deal, not the end of the world. So I got a couple reliefs I'm going to put in here real quick, just to kind of help the drape a little bit better. Okay, this is very, very, very light fiberglass. And now we're going to take our resin, or whatever's left of our resin, and I'm just going to get it as wet as I can, as fast as I can. You guys will see why in just a second here, but I'm not trying to do anything but get the resin on the part. And we do that as quickly as we can possibly do it. It's okay at this stage to be a little on the resin heavy side because we're going to be adding so many layers it won't matter anyway. But you want to make sure you get all those pinholes out that you might experience. So a little heavy on the resin is not bad for this first layer. Gonna need a little bit more resin actually, so I got my other cup already ready to rock and roll. So this chop strand mat has a glue that holds it together. And the resin system that we're using here, the Orca 555, actually dissolves the glues. There we go. Sorry, I lost internet connection for a second there, but we are back. At least it says we're back. I hope we're back. Still just getting the resin on the fiberglass. This first go is going to kind of give me an idea of what kind of resin demand I'm going to need per layer on this. So just kind of keep track of where you're sitting at in terms of your resin demand, and then on your future layers, you're not going to mix up too much. If we miss a little bit here and there, it's not the end of the world. Because again, we're going to have a lot of layers going down on this thing coming up here shortly. Okay, so I'm getting pretty close to having this all saturated. Now, because it's been sitting for a few minutes, the glues that hold the fiberglass together are starting to dissolve. And so now is where I want to come back and start the stipple procedure. And I like to start from the center and go out. And I'm just going to slowly start to work some of this fabric down into that lower area. And it's going to kind of self-conform. It's going to stretch all by itself. And it looks really nasty right now, but trust me, this is going to look like a supermodel in no time. It's going to look better than your prom date. Try to move this out just a little bit. $90% of this I'm going to do by hand, and then we'll come back with some fancy fiberglass tool rollers and kind of go over the little details once I get 90% of it done. But you can see how easy this is conforming now with this lightweight chop glass. This is not a super complicated mold, so that makes it a little bit easier as well, but one layer is all we're after today. Whenever I do my molds, it becomes about a week-long adventure. So I only do a couple layers per day. And I do that to keep the heat down. I do that to keep the shrinkage down. So today's one layer, tomorrow will be 2 layers, the following day will be 3 layers, and then by the time we're at the end of the week, we'll be down to 4 layers a day. And again, I'm just stippling, moving this lightweight chop strand mat around. Very, very, very conformable at this stage. It almost self-releases when it comes to the air bubbles because it's such a thin chop mat. Grab some extra resin here, take care of that flange area up there. I really want to try to get up as far as I can to the edge of the flange. I don't want there to be any dry spots on the outside of it. Stipple, 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 stipple. I'm going to add a little strip on this front because my fiberglass didn't quite get cut right. I thought I had enough to plan for the stretch, and I did not. So I'll add a little bit on that front flange just to lock it all in. All right, gonna grab a scissors real quick here, do a little bit of trimming. When it comes to fiberglass shears, use all metal scissors. Do not get those cheap, crappy plastic scissors. You want to use all metal ones so that you can cut wet resin and then clean it up with acetone after the fact. So that's a little trick of the trade for you guys paying attention. If you're going to get into the composite world, don't waste your money on crappy scissors. Just buy a nice pair and call it good. It's a tool. You don't feel bad about buying Snap-on, so don't feel bad about buying a nice pair of scissors. The only thing is that you actually have to clean them off with acetone. If you don't clean them off, they will lock up, so don't forget. And I just happen to have some acetone sitting here. So I'm going to get these cleaned up real quick while we're at it. It doesn't take a whole lot. All you got to do is drip your brush in some acetone and clean them up. These have seen many, many, many molds. Same pair of scissors. So yes, they will cost you $50, but they will last a long time. As long as you keep them clean, they'll last forever. There we go. That's a good starting point right there. All right, tune up what I've missed on the first little section here. So there, at this point, I have not done any sort of rolling for the bubbles yet. I'm still letting the resin sit and soak, get all those glues dissolved. Just using our stipple action. If you do notice that you have excessive resin, you can pick it up with your paintbrush and kind of wash off in your cup. There's a little bit of excessive resin sitting there in that valley. It's all good. We'll get that out here in a second. Like I said, I don't mind a little bit of excessive resin on the first coat. It does not hurt anything when it comes to the mold. Prove me wrong if you think I'm lying, but I have not found there to be any issue with doing a little bit of an excessive first resin coat. It guarantees that you don't have air bubbles, which is more important than the resin demand. No bubbles. Okay. So I've got that pretty darn close. Now is where I'm going to come back and I'm going to grab my rollers. I've got two different types of fiberglass rollers here. I've got a flat fiberglass roller and I've got a barrel roller. The barrel roller is going to help us kind of get into the corners The flat roller is going to help us get the flat areas out. So again, I like to start with center out principles. So we're working from the center and working our way out. That way, if there are any bubbles trapped in the middle, they're going to work their way out to the perimeter and get released. This particular chop mat has excellent air release. So it doesn't take a whole lot to get all the bubbles out on this particular fabric. You see I'm a little resin heavy. You can see the splashes. That's okay. That's okay. Our first layer, I do not mind. Like I said, I don't mind being a little resin heavy. It's totally, totally okay. A little bit of a splashy splash sound all over the place. Got plenty of resin on this thing right now. Once we get into some of the thicker, the backing layers, once we start doing the actual structure of the mold, we'll be a little bit more careful about the resin demand on that one. But this first layer, like I'm not gonna stop saying it. It's really important you have no bubbles on your first layer. Mold integrity. You want to try to keep that as good as you can possibly keep it. We're just working our way around the perimeter now. Working our way around that flange. Keeping a close eye, make sure we don't have any bubbles. There are about a million different bubble rollers that you can get. Like I said, I personally prefer these plastic ones. Seems to do a pretty good job. This is the kind of stage where you can start to roll some of that excessive resin off as well. You can just let it run right off the part, no big deal. Sometimes you'll find you have a lot of extra resin. That's all good. Again, on this first layer, I would rather see a little bit too much resin than not enough resin. You know what I'm going to grab here while we're at it? I am going to grab a headlamp. Sorry if this light's going to be a little bright for you guys here and there. I just want to make sure that we don't have any hidden bubbles. Headlamp kind of shows that off a little bit more. Nice and slow. Taking extra time around the mold return flanges here. Oh, this is looking good. I am so excited for this project, you guys. You don't even know. All right. Just want to do a visual inspection. Ooh, got a bubble minefield down here in this corner. It's all right. We're taking care of that right now. The flanges on these are as important as the part surface, just so you know. This is going to be set up for a resin infusion. So I want to make sure the flanges are very, very, very beefy and very, very structurally sound. Okay. I don't want to brag, but I think we're good. Give you a quick visual tour here in just a second. Again, with the Same principle as paint brushes. Your roller tools you want to clean with acetone immediately after you use them. Get all that resin off. That way you can reuse and recycle, because you do not need to throw away whatever, $6 a piece, $7 a piece. That gets expensive if you have to throw them away each time. So clean them up with acetone. Give them a quick wash. They'll be like brand new. Care about your tools, guys. Care about your tools. I'm actually going to do a quick flush on our acetone here, change it out so we got some fresh acetone. One little trick of the trade, I'll tell you guys, is do not buy your acetone from the big box stores. Go to a fiberglass supplier or a chemical supplier. The acetone quality at your big box stores is not what it is from an industrial supplier. A lot of the acetones that you find on the shelves at the big box stores are recycled acetone, and so it does not cut, especially when it comes to epoxies and fiberglass resins. There, that is just like brand new. Just like nothing happened, right? That's still doing good. We still got some open time. Just make sure there's nothing I need to babysit real quick here. Flatten a few couple areas out real quick. Always good to just go back over your part over and over and over again. As much work time as you have, take advantage of it. I've got just a couple little air bubbles down here. Just dabbing those out. I'll get my roller back out and just roll that out real quick again. Ah, I got some resin on my sweatshirt. Oh well, that happens. It's what you get for not wearing a tie back. Yeah, we're looking really good. We're looking really good. Let me show you guys how good we're looking actually. So I don't see bubbles anywhere. And again, using our LED headlamp is really, really important to try to help see all those little pinholes. If you guys were paying attention on the stage one where I actually put the tooling gel coat down, the tooling gel coat is bright orange. And on my last coat, I added some black pigment to kind of darken that up a little bit, because the darker your resin color is, or the darker your gel coat color is, the easier it is to see pinholes. So if the brown orange mix that we have right now is white, white is very, very, very difficult to see pinholes in. Black, on the other hand, is very, very easy to see pinholes. So, little trick of the trade. This must be where I touch the hoodie. So we'll tune that up real quick. Boy, I think we're good for our first layer. I think this is looking fantastic. All in all, I'm going to end up putting enough fiberglass on here to kill a cow, right? I want to target about a half an inch, somewhere in that target, half inch, 5/8 of an inch, in terms of overall thickness of the mold. So this is just the first layer. Like I said, tomorrow I'll come by and put another layer on in the morning, put another 2 layers on tomorrow night. The following day I'll do 2 layers in the morning, 2 layers at night. The following day I'll do 2 layers and 2 layers, and that should be enough. So it's going to take about 4 days total to get this mold finished. And during that whole process, I'm just going to be very, very nervous about, will it pop out? Is it going to work? You know, all that kind of fun jazz. And you don't know what you're going to get until you actually pop your part out. So that's the only downside of doing mold work, is you have no idea of what you actually did until you actually pop the mold off. But I've done this a time or two. I know this is going to turn out great. I am very excited to show you guys what's going to happen. And then once the mold is done, that's where things really, really get exciting, because then we're going to start making carbon fiber chairs. Retro chair with modern flair. Carbon fiber right out of the gate. We're going to do some fancy carbon fiber and show you guys something that has never been seen before. One of a kind. One of a kind. And hopefully we can sell some, right? That's the end goal here, is to sell some pretty cool decor pieces. Whether that's going to go in a hot rod shop or an office building or somebody's fancy living room. All right, the cup and the resin, or the resin in the cup here, is just kind of starting to slow down a little bit. I know it doesn't look like it yet, but that's just starting to go off a little bit. I've been live for almost 40 minutes now. So let's say that this resin's got a 25-minute open window. Being as thin as it is, there's a lot less heat. So if it's thick layers of fiberglass, it's going to develop a lot more heat and the resin's going to go off faster. Being it's a fairly thin laminate, it doesn't develop the kind of heat, and so it takes longer for it to actually go off. But since there's a big mass in the cup here, this is going to go off faster than the actual chair does. And you can see just how thin this fiberglass chop mat that I'm using is. So you can actually kind of see through it. So it's not a very thick chop mat, and especially when you tear it and rip it, like, it's a very, very thin chop mat. Super, super conformable. So 3/4 ounce for our first layer. We'll do 3/4 ounce and then start beefing it up with like a 1.5 ounce layer tomorrow. But I think that's it, kids. Layer 1 is done. It is in the books. So thank you for stopping by. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. You know, turn on your notifications. If you're into this composite stuff and you want to see more, check out my Instagram. It's Gray Duck Customs, and you'll see lots of fancy carbon fiber stuff. You'll see hot rod stuff. You'll see some cool Hot Wheels stuff on there. But yeah, first layer, retro chair, modern flair, going down. The mold work is happening. Very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. So I will catch you guys tomorrow. We'll do another couple fiberglass layups. I'll be posting these live probably later on tonight. So if you want to review the video, watch it, knock yourself out. and I will catch you guys all later. Have a good one.